Yo.
What's going on? Good morning.
Good morning, y'all.
Good morning.
How y'all doing?
We here. It's a pretty good Sunday. Kind of cloudy, but not too bad, man. We blessed to be alive.
Okay.
Yeah, amen to that.
Yeah. And let me pull up the screen. Today we're gonna have a guest. He just texted me. He should be here soon. Um, and we'll get into why in a little bit. But welcome to another team meeting where our mission is to distract you from your current story, inspire you to change your mind, which inspires you to change your life, and dismantle your current belief systems. And as usual, we love the followers. We appreciate you all. But our mission is to serve. So the more people we can get in front of, the better. So please smash that share button because once again, our mission is to serve. And the more people we can get in front of, the better. All right. And right on time, let's introduce Big Mike. What up, Mike?
What's going on, fellas? How you doing?
What's
Good,
good?
man.
What's good, man? What's up, boss man?
Not much.
How you doing,
Chilling.
Mike?
I'm blessed.
How
I
you
can't
doing, Mike?
complain. I'm blessed. I can't complain, brother.
Okay. Everything good in the new crib?
Yeah, man. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's a lot of work,
Okay.
but I ain't gonna complain.
Yeah, it's a blessing, man. It's a blessing. And for context, Mike, can you tell everybody what you do and where you do as much as you can share?
Well, yeah, I'm a detective. Now I'm a detective in the city of Camden.
Oh, you a detective now? You got promoted.
Yeah, I moved up.
Okay,
Yeah, bro.
okay. And you said Camden?
Yeah,
Yeah, you a detective in the jungle, boy.
yeah. It's different. It's different.
Yeah, yes, sir. All right, so today our um our topic is conflict and gun violence. As we all know, recently and beyond, like all time for real, but especially recently, we've had a lot of bigger public incidents with police and primarily African Americans being killed by those police in some very, very unfortunate incidents. All right, so we're gonna jump right into it. Let me take this thing down off my face. All right, so first, and I didn't want to leave any room for like opinion or nothing like that came from us. So we're just gonna watch a 2 minute video and we'll use that as context for part of our conversation. Now we know it's the media, they can say what they want and all those different kind of things, but we're just gonna go off of the public information.
No doubt. No doubt.
A new view of what led to the shooting of 16-year-old Micaiah Bryant. This angle from a neighborhood security camera across the street, showing Columbus, Ohio police officer Nicholas Reardon arriving on the scene, emerging from the vehicle and shooting Bryant in black as she appeared to lunge at another young woman wearing pink with a knife in her hand. Reardon, who has been taken off street duty while an independent investigation is underway, firing 4 shots at Bryant within seconds. The police department and the police union president arguing the use of force was necessary to protect the young woman in pink.
I would ask you, if that's your family member up against a car that had a puppy in your hand, what would you want that officer to do in that split second moment if they had a chance to stop harm to others? We have a duty to protect the public and ourselves, certainly the public.
A view echoed by other law enforcement experts.
Immediately upon exiting the vehicle, Officer Reardon observes an assault that's taking place. He sees one person that's in possession of a knife, and then he sees a victim next, or a potential victim, that's standing next to an auto. Officer Reardon believed that deadly physical force was necessary in this encounter because the potential victim could have possibly lost their life.
Explain once again why the officer took these actions and why he did so quickly.
This was an incident that went from 0 to 100 immediately. The officer's actions were justified under the purview of the use of force doctrine.
Mayor Andrew Ginther saying the city is grieving a tragic loss and stressing the importance of transparency.
Our African American community in particular here is grieving, not just at this particular tragic event, but so many deadly encounters with law enforcement they're seeing around the country and even here in this community. And so it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we are supporting, folks in the community right now that are grieving, but also calling for and demanding for change, reform, and justice. And transparency is such an important part of that.
Police released dash camera footage Thursday from shortly after the shooting, part of that effort at transparency. Meanwhile, Bryant's mother grappling with the pain of losing her daughter.
It's really frustrating because I miss my baby.
All right. So first video, fellas, if you saw anything, something you want to keep in your mind, just write it down so you can refer back to it later. And then another video from this week too. I can't remember what's the location, but we're gonna watch this one too. It's a couple minutes long.
This the one in the school bathroom?
Yeah,
Tennessee.
Yeah, I just saw this one. Yeah, I saw this one yesterday.
Tennessee.
Tennessee, yeah.
Thanks, Josh. Tennessee. All right, fellas. So, any notes? Make sure y'all write them down so you can refer back to them later. All right. So, gun violence, topic of the day. So, just a couple of notes. Number one, we are not here to bad talk the police. We're here to review factual data, at least from what we know. Maybe Mike can share some inside information on like what the public knows versus what's really going on. To have an open discussion and talk about the things that we can control. If you know me personally, like I don't never have anything against the government, police, white people, anybody. Only worry about us and what we can do. That's what we can control. All right. So just a couple of notes. Number two, a primary focus for this conversation is that both of these events started with conflicts between people that had nothing to do with the police. Uh, Micaiah was in a conflict with some people that's still to be determined, some adult women, from what I understand. But clearly, there was a fight going on that had been going on for some time before the police had even got there. Police had nothing to do with it. And then for Mr. Thompson, I think it was Chris, I think, Mr. Thompson, he was fighting his girlfriend, allegedly. They had some arguments 2 times earlier in the day, and he put his hands on her, allegedly. But there were some domestic violent conflicts that had nothing to do with the police before the police came. And there was a bystander or bystanders that thought the conflict was escalating too rapidly. I don't know who called for Micaiah's situation, but I know that the girlfriend's mom called um, the police in the second incident, and there was some communication with the school. All right, so people thought the conflicts were getting out of hand, right? And it may or may not have been right since there was weapons in both situations. Not quite sure. We will talk about the things that we can do before the police get there, when they get there, and after they depart. So once again, the things we can control. And then the game 7 principle that we have is that it may not be your fault, but it's your responsibility. Whatever it is for the various situations, it may not be your fault, but it's your responsibility. So keep that in mind as you're listening to our conversation or participating. All right. And please blow up them comments. And of course, fellas, we gonna talk. So some personal reasons why this matters to me. Not really these events, but gun violence. So I wish G was here, but Pizzle knows I've been pulled over 100 times. Uh, maybe 200. Like numerous times. I've had numerous guns pointed at me from people, from police. I've been handcuffed numerous times. I've had my vehicle searched tons of times, especially during college. I've ducked bullets in public and in my own living room. My car got shot up in 2019, and I see students all the time online with guns. We talk about it in the Game 7 chat all the time. Like, look at this. Look at this. I'm trying to tell them XYZ, XYZ. So gun violence is very, very, very personal to me. And something else, which I never did. If I wanted all kinds of illicit guns and to do kind of bad things, I've had tons and tons and tons of chances. All right. So that's reasons number one. Number two, Willie. You'll hear me talk about him a lot. He was a former student of Justin and I. He had some kind of conflict that did not involve the police. He was killed, not by the police. I'm not sure by who. I don't know if you know, Jess, but I'm assuming it was another young man, either a Hispanic young man or a black young man. I do not know that for sure. I never felt the need to research. I just know that he was lost far too soon. Like we lost him to gun violence. Student C, I won't say his name, but the first student that I ever met as a teacher. So my first job was kind of weird. Probably for you too, Just. We worked at an alternative school, and I was 23 teaching a bunch of 19, 20, and 21-year-olds, and other kids under that. But there were a lot of kids who were like my age, and I'm their teacher, and they're trying to get through the 9th, 10th, 11th grade as a little grown man or woman. But the first student I ever met, I didn't even have a key to the room. We were in the hallway, and we were just rapping. He's like, "Yo, you a teacher?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "You don't look like a teacher." "Yeah, I'm a teacher, bro." And this is like my first day. And we just started talking. And he was telling me how he had this was like his first day or first week back after he had got shot at the basketball courts. and we grew a real close bond, I never picked him up, but I would take him home a lot after school, and we would just talk. And I always think about him. I have no idea what happened to him. He kind of just dropped off of the face of the earth. But student C, the first kid I ever met as a teacher at an alternative school. Me and student G, who I know is having a hard time now. He was a graduate last year doing the Corona graduation, so didn't really get a graduation. But we were in lunch, all the kids in the class. Sometimes I let people in my room, and we were just looking out the window talking. And then it's this hood across the street from the school in DC. It's called Garfield, and we see this dude running. The apartments are kind of like up on the hill, and it goes downhill a little bit, and there's a gate that goes around the community. One of them gates with like the iron columns, the little iron stick looking things, and the dude is running. He just dives for the gate and like trying to get through. So we like, what's going on? We get through, then there's this other dude coming, and like he sticks his hand through the gate, boom, 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 shot him 3 times. We at school, bro, and we just watching it, and it was just regular. Like we just watched it like it was regular. We watched him limp across the street, fall in the street. Somebody picked him up, whether they was involved or no, and they sped off. And me and Gate, I almost said his name. Me and G, we just kept on talking like it was regular, and we could see primarily adults from different cultures come running. Hey, did you just see that? Blah blah blah. But that always sticks out to me because it was like a regular thing, and especially for him because he lived there. Student G. It's like, yo, Malcolm, I already know. I said, yo, don't tell me nothing, and you should probably just keep it quiet unless your legal situation changed or something. But that was just like a regular thing. That's an event that always sticks out with me. Next, Washington student K, who was a very, very close friend to Willie. Amazing student, very, very gifted. He was a rapper, an artist, very intelligent dude, and an athlete. But one day, I think this was 10th grade, end of 9th grade or his 10th grade year, his older brother got killed. Gun violence by a black man. And I just watched him like plummet. It's like all of his juice was just taken from him. He was like just sleep in class. He didn't care about nothing. He would just go off at times. And then later, his senior year, he accidentally bought a gun to school. Now he's a smart dude. I do believe it was an accident because he put the bag through the metal detector, and the gun was in there. I was like, oh yeah, well somebody at this place may have put it in there, but he bought a gun to school. And after he fell off because of losing his brother. 2 years ago, student Z, young boy, 6th grader, very, very charismatic in the beginning of the year, whole lot of energy, dope dude. Then one day he came back, he was the angriest little kid I ever met, right? And I keep it G with my kids. I was telling like, yo, you the meanest little boy I ever met. What's wrong with you? He would just be snapping. Like, what happened to my man? Like, we was cool. Now, you the meanest little dude I ever met. And then one day during the middle of class, we doing math. Like, yo, Malcolm, come here. I gotta tell you something. Like, no, come here. So he's like, my brother got killed. I'm like, oh my, your brother got killed? Like, what happened? Man, he got killed at the studio. So it's this page, I can't follow it no more, but when I was teaching, especially at the high school level, to stay hip to what was going on in the hoods, because the news only gets so much. It's this page called Murder and Mayhem. It tell you everything that happened in the city. So I knew exactly, like, yeah, that was your brother? He's like, yeah, how you know? I was like, man, I do my research. So I walked him down to the counselors so they could talk to him. He was like, y'all don't want to talk to him. I want to talk to you. So they sent somebody to my class and we all talked a little bit, but that always sticks out to me too. It's not always the people that get shot or do the shooting, but it has a drastic effect on people around you, especially little brothers. Like maybe that's just my experience, but it seems like little brothers, obviously parents, but the little brothers they lose their hero. And then finally, I always talk about Joe. Before anybody on this call, this is my right hand man. Mike, you knew Joe. Did you know Joe, Mike?
Yeah.
That was my right hand man, and actually, the crimes he was said to be a part of, and he willingly says he made mistakes happened in Camden where Mike worked. So, But yeah, he
that was
guns really
crazy,
took
bro.
over his life. What'd you say, Mike?
I said that was crazy.
Yeah, crazy, crazy. And here we are. What is he now? Like 32?
Mhm.
32? Half of his life he's been in prison. Half of his life he's been in prison. So just some reasons why these things are important to me. So let's review some data. Let's review some data. So this is according to the CDC, which oversees gun violence because it is a public health issue, according to Setup. And it's through an article on the USA Today. So I took some quotes from it. So young black men and teens made up more than a third of firearm homicide victims in the U.S. in 2019. Black men and boys ages 15 to 34 make up just 2% of the nation's population. They were among 37% of the gun homicides that year. That's 20 times higher than white males of the same age group. Of all reported firearm homicides in 2019, more than half of the victims were black men. 63% of the male victims were black. Across all ages, black men were nearly 14 times more likely to die in a firearm homicide than white men, and 8 times more likely to die in a firearm homicide than the general population, including women. Black women and girls are also at higher risk. Black females had the highest risk of being killed by a firearm um, than females of any other race or ethnicity, and they were 4 times more likely to be victims than white females. Most of children and teens up to age 19 who died that year died by firearm. The study found that 1 in 10 deaths in that age group. That's the second highest total in 20 years. Evidence suggests that gun homicides rose dramatically last year during the pandemic, but because of what they argue is a lack of timely data, we won't know the full scale of the problem for many months to come. The emerging data suggests, the authors wrote, that suicides among Black people rose disproportionately. Though the study found that the majority of all suicide deaths by firearm, 73% were white males. White men were more than twice as likely to die by a firearm suicide than others. 60% of all firearm deaths in 2019 were suicides. In total, 39,707 people died from gun violence that year. So all in all, most gun deaths, if it's a self-kill, a suicide, is more or less done by white men, not black men. And the far majority of gun deaths are done by black men, young black men, to each other. Most gun deaths are black men, young black men killing each other. The majority of all the deaths are suicide. But what's to say, 75% of that are white men. So we're only 25% of that, plus the other races and genders. But by far, the most gun deaths via homicide are young black men. It's not the police killing us killing us. All right. So let's review some data, some more data. So this is from a study from a group called Mapping Police Violence via USA Newsweek. I think it was from this week. So since George Floyd's death last May while in Minneapolis police custody, 181 black people in the U.S. have been killed by the police. Of the 966 police killings reported since May 25th, 2020, black people account for 18.7%, despite making up 13% of the U.S. population, according to the Census Bureau. Police killings of white victims made up 37% of the total deaths. White Americans are 76.3% of the population, the Census Bureau says. Data also indicated that of the total police killings since Floyd's death, just about 12% were Hispanic victims, 1% Native American, and another 1% were Asian or Pacific Islander. The race of the victim was unknown. The race of the one victim was unknown in the 359 deaths. Despite the renewed push for law enforcement changes, data shows that police are still killing at rates similar to the past years and that 319 people have been killed by the police in 2021. Of the 1127 police killings recorded in 2020, only 16 cases, 1.4%, resulted in a charge against the offending officer. Of the officers identified, at least 14 had shot or killed someone in the past. Numbers gathered between 2013 and 2020 indicate that black people are 3 times more likely to be killed by police than white people. despite being 1.3 times more likely to be unarmed than white people. These figures are amplified when looking at the country's largest cities. In 47 of the 50 largest U.S. cities, police killed black people at higher rates than white people. In Chicago, police killed black people at a rate 22 times more than that of white people, based on killings per 100,000 population. In Miami, racial disparities could not be calculated because every person in the city's police department was black or brown. Every person killed by the police department was black or brown. Of the police killings documented in 2020, traffic stops were listed as an initial police encounter and 121 deaths. All right, so just some quick data about police-related killings in America. All right, so let's talk about types of conflict, and then we'll discuss types of conflict. Because remember that in the far majority of these situations with gun deaths, there are conflicts that have nothing to do with the police. And when the police do come, and when there is a death, a lot of times because of conflict, they have nothing to do. Now, like we got the George Floyds, we got the BART station one. Like it's clearly some outliers. There's clearly some outliers. But the data says that is the far, 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 far few, and the far majority is us on us, right? Look at the picture, you know? Like if we can just control our side, this issue would still be an issue, most likely, but the gun issue would be a much, much smaller issue to our community. So conflict is necessary, but it must be healthy. Micaiah Burrell, we wouldn't be here today. If man and his girlfriend could have had a healthy conflict, we wouldn't be here today talking about this. So an unhealthy conflict, I'm not going to read through them all. Just put them up on the screen. Take a second to check it out. Personal baggage, retaliation, hurt, quick conclusions, no good conversation, selfish, defending your territory, defending your hood. It makes everybody worse. Healthy conflict on the other side. You see differences impartially. You want to know what's going on. Resolution, helpful, understanding, conversations, solutions, opening up, and it makes the team better. All right, so I want to leave our last 40 minutes or so. I want to leave it open for discussion. My intended direction, I wanted to go where I want to go, but my goal is to highlight the things that we can control. Because just according to, I don't really watch the news or do the media and stuff, but the things that I see that kind of blow up and are like forced on my timelines and such, it seems like we're not as angry. We're not as angry with ourselves as we are with the police when it comes to gun violence. That's my personal opinion. Y'all can take your own stance, but I believe that if we stop killing each other and join teams, we can combat these police issues a lot more clearly. And I want Mike to go last, so he doesn't just have my thoughts. I want him to have everybody's thoughts before he shares, what he can share as an insider on the other side. So let's go KG, Pizzle, then Just.
Dope. Yeah, this conversation is always one that's well needed. Unfortunately, in the world we're living, watching videos like that is we like I know myself. It's more I'm like numb to it, right? It's like again, and obviously we had a big win amongst our community with the George Floyd, his killer getting convicted, right? And sad to say, I didn't even have any type of expectation, right? And it's sad that I'm saying that because I didn't want to get let down, right? So that's how it is, like in terms of, in the last couple of years, 20, 25 years of my life, as long as I can remember seeing things like this. This was the first time we really seen someone can get convicted. And it was just sad to me because I like me personally, like I really like I wanted to have hope, but at the same time, I didn't want to get super like, yeah, this is a done deal, right? Because I've seen what happened in the past. But so that's what I want to say on that. Like I'm glad things, were handled correctly in terms of that, him getting convicted. So that was a win. I think the country needed that. I don't if I think if he didn't get convicted, it would, all hell would have broke loose in our country. We seen what happened when the incident happened, right? You see how our country and how the world kind of reacted to that. So I'm glad the jury did what was right for sure. In terms of conflict, and I believe a lot of people don't know how to have healthy conflict, right? And especially in our community, um, it's tough, because you grow up, and I can remember us growing up like no one wanted to be the quote unquote punk, the any other word you can think about it. Excuse my French, the bitch, like any of that. No one wanted to be labeled that. So a lot of this conflict and unhealthy conflict comes from straight pride. Um, and it's sad to see because it's like, yo, like, is this the only way we know how to um, handle our problems, our troubles in our community is with violence? And even it's safe to say that when you try to deflect or want to move away from violence, you're also called a punk. Like, oh, you're not with the smoke, you don't want none of it. Like, no, like I value my life. Um, but yeah, so just like Lovelock said, those videos, even though I'm so used to seeing them now, which is sad, like it's still always a little tough to watch. On the first video, to be honest, I don't know. Like that's a tough call. That's a bang man. What I do know is, um, in my opinion, I don't believe 4 shots should have been fired. Uh, but that is a bang bang play. Like that's tough for me. Like you walking up on the spot and you see some like a fight happen, and you see a knife, and you know what I mean. Like I don't know. Like clearly, is it other opportunities that you can do uh to to de-escalate the situation? Yeah, right. But who's to say if that was your daughter on the other end behind the person I was getting lunged at, right? Like, and if he didn't do what he did, you never know. She could be carved up. You know what I'm saying? So that's like that first video to me is a little bang bang-ish. Like, that's tough, right? Because in video, like the video, people say it's altered, people say it's like, like all I can see is what's on the screen and what's presented to me. So that one, that's a little tough. Do I don't believe he should have fired 4 shots. No, right? Um, maybe a warning, John. Like, I believe, did he shoot a warning shot?
Nah,
Maybe a taser. I don't know. Like, is it different situations? Hopefully, right? Like, usually I wouldn't want to strike with deadly force. But at the same time, that's their job, is to protect and serve the community. And to me, she was clearly lunging with some intent. So that one is, I don't did I think she deserved to die? No, not at all. Not, whatsoever. Um, you know what I mean? But as we said, that situation was only there because of the unhealthy conflict that people don't know how to solve in the beginning. The second video, just seemed like it was like poorly handled, right? the 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 young teen was clearly distraught. You can tell he was going through it. He was complying. Um, he didn't even have his hands near that. Uh, and they seen it like, and he didn't try. To me, it didn't look like he tried to pull it, anything, right? They just seen it and automatically, oh, wait. And then the one officer pulled the trigger. Like, what? Like, to me, that's scary. Like, um, maybe we can have a little more discussion on that, but that's what I seen. Like, obviously he had the strap in school, which is a no-go, right? No. Like, why would you have the strap in school? So that's one, he's wrong, right of that. Um, but at the same time, it didn't look like he was aggressively trying to uh do anything about it. As soon as they got there, he was responding verbally. It wasn't like he made a big gesture to us. Like, he let them search him, knowingly that he had that on him, right? And then assuming that one of the other people got hit, then he started letting them go because he thought he got hit. Um, and then he actually hit his other worker in two. So that situation to me could have been avoidable, right? Just remove the firearm, and obviously it's a little easier for me to say because I'm not in that situation. I'm curious to see what Mike has to say because he's in situations like that, which
Mm-hmm.
is why I'm glad he's on this call, because we can just have an open discussion about real life situations, right? But that second video, I don't think he because it wasn't like he was trying to fight or anything like that. They just found the strap, and because to me it didn't look like that anyone can. I don't know. To me, it didn't look like he was trying to forcefully like do anything to them. Maybe I have to watch it a couple of times, but I was watching pretty intently, and that's what I seen. But yeah, a lot of the stuff when you read the CDC, it does it starts with us, right? Like I get it. We're outraged by police like killing us, and I am too, right? I don't think people should be like just straight up killed for some things. Like it's another way to handle that. Obviously, if someone's life is in danger, it's you or me. That's kind of the situation people have. It's like if somebody is trying to take my life, like it's either you or me. But to go back to the young men in our culture, it's almost like it's just like these guys are hypnotized, like they're infatuated with with the lifestyle, and it seems like the kids are getting younger and younger, and that's scary. It's like they trying to get respect from people our age, and they're making the young kids make decisions or putting them in situations that they probably weren't in when they were that age, right? And it's just tough to see, working in schools, working with Game 7, and seeing the students, like, because it's like pain, yo.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like legit pain. And a lot of the students know that they need the help, but unfortunately, like, some of them don't want the help or don't think they can get out of the situation. And it's many factors. Um, but a lot of it is from pain, extreme pain, um, wanting to be loved, right? So they go to these many different people that live in this type of culture because they feel like this is the love they're gonna get. And sometimes unfortunately we seen this in school. Like sometimes then, the parents get fed up, so then they kick them out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the time when we struggle, right? Because when they really need support, and I get it, like, that's tough as a parent, but when the kid really needs support, now they're really out to fend for themselves. And then it's even more, if it's even worse. Like, well, my mom don't even my folks don't even want me. Like now I'm really out there just, drugged up and running the streets because what else am I able to do? This is the only way I know how to handle my like my emotions, scars, um, and it's tough, right? So we have to, and I don't know, it's such a sad thing. It's just we got to be able to receive and want to change, and that's tough. Like I think so many people are so deep into the streets and living that lifestyle that it's like they don't see anything. It's like no return, right? It's like no return. Um, and and I think that's the biggest thing because we just don't know how to solve conflict, and it just escalates to more and to more, to more and to more and to more. Um, you know, and to be honest, I think this summer is going to be bad too, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
less COVID fear. Now people are starting to get vaccines. We're well over a year now, and I think people are just ready to be in the mix again. So I think this summer, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to go pretty well in terms of things like that. So, um, I think KP is next, so I'm gonna pass it on to you.
Appreciate that, man, and you definitely hit some good points. Um, it's a crazy situation, right? And one thing I will give you a disclaimer. I told the guys earlier, I got some teeth work done before, so I'll talk a little different and worry. But it's a bad situation for me, right? Because when I look at a lot of the past situations, when you look at like Breonna Taylor, you look at Rashad, you look at George Floyd. It sucks that these individuals are in this particular situation, right? Or you see George Floyd, and he's arguing whether or not he had a counterfeit $20 bill, whether or not he was refusing to get into the car. To me, I think my biggest issue with a lot of these issues is that I don't feel as though people have to die from this, right? When you look at now the situation that happened with the Makia, I mean that's really iffy. I don't even want to touch on that because it's really iffy, and I want to see some more evidence to kind of support what I'm thinking. But when you look at other situations, yes, though we put ourselves in those particular situations, it gets kind of confusing when it's like why is it that police officers naturally grab their gun versus grabbing their stun gun? And then you look at a lot of other situations in other cultures, and the first thing they grab is a stun gun. And then you're just like, well, I know he put himself in that situation, but why would you choose option B versus option A for that individual when it came to a different race? He would choose a completely different option, if that makes sense. So it sucks. It's bad. I think that we do have a lot to do with it. Like I said, putting ourselves in that particular situations, but a lot of times I don't think the results have to end in death. Versus somebody still being alive to be tried and to be held accountable for what they did, right? Because a lot of these kids, they're not. How can you be held accountable? You dead, right? But then you look at other races and like they're still going to court, they're still alive, they're fighting cops, they're stabbing cops, they're running down the street, and you just kind of like, well, what is the difference? Why is it that the first natural reaction is to shoot? When you look at blacks and browns versus the other races, so that's what I struggle with.
Yeah, definitely great points, KP. So I took a couple notes. The first video we watched from Ma'Khia Bryant. I think like KP shared, I do think that the public does need to see a little bit more footage. Now, based on what we did see, though, I do think it is a game time decision. Quite honestly, I do think that there is a lack of cultural competence that exists amongst police that are not black or brown, though. Quite honestly, I think
That's
that is a huge reason why we see a disproportionate rate of white officers killing brown people than you see brown officers killing brown people. Very rarely also do we see black or brown police officers involved in any of these nationwide police killings of black or brown people too, which I think is some data that I think it would be great to support. If someone can find that kind of data, basically to support that reality, and also begin to kind of uncover why are black or brown officers making different decisions in these high intensity situations, because it's not that they're not faced with them, right? If you're a police officer in a district that experiences this kind of normal experience or normal situation, then they're faced with it just as much as their white counterparts. But obviously the outcomes are different. I do think that there's a huge sense of urgency that needs to happen with uncovering that reality, and then also finding the solution, because people's lives are being taken because of that gap, right? So that's the reason for urgency. Now, I also do think that the officer in the Micaiah Bryant situation, from the outside looking in, if he did have opportunity to pull his taser and shoot the taser, I don't know if they have the shooting taser or the one that you got to get close or not. I could understand if an officer didn't want to put himself or herself in a situation to get close enough to actually tase the person if it wasn't the shooting taser. I also think that, another potential outcome could have been, hey, yes, a warning shot, definitely very firm verbal redirection, right? Maybe even starting before he gets to the scene, through the siren, through the speaker, through the car. I think, that can be maybe an opportunity for professional development in situations similar to that, whether weapons are involved or not. I also think that, maybe if he did need to use lethal force, he could have decided to shoot her in the lower part of her body, right? To essentially disable her that way. Shoot out the car window. Anything to get major attention off of that victim, and essentially, maybe even potentially save that young lady's life, or get the situation under control. And this is a very tall statement coming up next. Okay, now like Malcolm has created this conversation to identify solutions that we can somehow gather, and also identify that we struggle at healthy conflict. We also struggle at doing a good job of raising our children nowadays. Okay, and I know that is a tall and hurtful statement, but if we're going to be completely honest, we are failing at that at this juncture in our life, at this juncture in society and in history. We are doing a very poor job. And many of these situations have unfortunate outcomes because young people have not been raised to know how to behave and conduct themselves better. Okay. Now we can make a lot of argument and a lot of cases on why some of these situations are happening, but there is a underlying reality that behavior that these young people showed, or even adults, spilled out from experiences that happened in other parts of their life. Okay, if we're going to talk about Micaiah Bryant, you just don't wake up and do a very, very good job of conducting yourself your entire life, and then in the split second you are out in public with a knife lunging at somebody. Now, do I believe that very, very unfortunate situations happen that bring out the worst in people? Yes, I definitely agree with that. But in this situation, there was a group of people that also failed Micaiah Bryant.
Definitely.
Before that police officer came. Okay. Now, whether they were friends, family, community members, anybody, right? I'm not sure if that young lady's mother was home, but there was some adult in the community, in that neighborhood, okay, that could have verbally de-escalated the young lady, reminded her of who she is, what your mother raised you to be, whatever it is, right? Because at first we have a responsibility to ourselves before anybody else has a responsibility to us. So there's a lot of, when watching the first video, I see a lot of individuals that have dropped the ball, that now a young teenage lady doesn't get a chance to see the opportunity to grow from this experience, right? And a part of it is that there's a responsibility to the gentleman that pulled the trigger, but I do agree that there's even more responsibility on the individuals that had a closer connection to that young lady than anyone else. Okay, my heart bleeds for her as a young lady and her soul right now, because if most people live 75 years old, she hasn't even got a chance to live the first quarter of her life. If this is a game, right? She hasn't even got a chance to learn and get the experiences that you need so that you can become a better individual in quarter two, reassess during halftime, get it together as a third quarter, and then eventually in the fourth quarter of your life. She doesn't have that opportunity, but there's a tall responsibility, if not more, on the individuals that had a closer hand in her life. Now, fast forward into the second video with the young man, Mr. Thompson, with a gun in school. Coming from being a dean of students in schools, working in schools over 10 years, there is a huge red flag that comes with school protocol in that video. Number one, I don't care if your neighborhood, if your environment calls for the lack of metal detectors, but you need to ensure that students that enter a school building are safe. Now, if you don't want to ensure that, if you want to, decide not to do metal detectors and things of that sort, you got to have some other kind of protocols. You have to. Because if that young man decided not to get in a conflict with his girlfriend, he still was walking around school. We don't even know what time of the day that was, right? There was a number. We've watched this since Columbine and all these other school shootings, right? We have to understand at this point that young people have access to weapons. Now, I do agree.
Hey, just to give you context, because in my research, there's a timeline. He went in and out the building numerous times throughout the day. So just keep that in mind.
Oh man, it's another major red flag. So I will share that in the schools that I've worked in, I want to say from elementary, but I can't confirm elementary, but definitely from middle school through high school, through alternative ed, there are metal detectors. Every single student goes through security coming into the building. And at first I was a little bit indifferent about it, right? I think there's a perspective that people can take about, hey, you're immediately creating the mindset that, hey, this isn't a safe environment. We have to ensure that it's safe, things of that sort. But at the end of the day, if we're going to be honest, there have been enough experiences around our country that prove that we'd rather be safe than sorry. Okay, so that's number one. I would urge that school district and surrounding school districts to revisit their school safety plan. Number two, I have been in multiple situations where police officers, private investigators, higher order police officers, FBI has come in the building for our students. They are never, ever, ever giving the opportunity to free roam in our building to go and access a student. That is the responsibility of school personnel. Okay? And the reason for that is this. You want to ensure that, number one, that student or that young person is not on guard. They are not aware of the potential of them being apprehended. Okay? That's number one. Number two is you want to ensure that there is safety amongst the rest of the students in the building, right? If that young person does get wind that officers are there to arrest that person, they can act in a very, very unpredictable way, putting themselves or other people in danger. Okay. My urge and what our approach was, you go retrieve that student, regular conversation. How you doing, man? I just want to come rap with you. See how the day was going. Maybe reference what something's happened in the neighborhood or whatever, and kind of keep it chill. Come talk to them. Bring them to your office. Bring them to the main office. Bring them to a conference room, right? You don't have the police in there sitting, because then you give the opportunity for the student to lash out and maybe defend themselves. You bring them in there. You wrap them up. And eventually you send a text message to whoever it is and things of that sort. And this is not setting anybody up or anything like that, but you understand that you have a role as an adult to comply with law enforcement, but also to keep that young person and other young people safe. Okay. The officer's walking into the bathroom. I don't know who that other young man was in the bathroom with the white t-shirt and the backpack, and they made him get on the ground as well. I don't know if that was Mr. Thompson's friend, if he just happened to be going to the bathroom, but he was in danger as well.
Yeah, he was in the next stall when that happened. He was sitting in the stall.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he knew that Mr. Thompson had a gun on him or not, but if that was my son and he didn't know Mr. Thompson, oh, you better believe it's going to be some action taken forward, because now my child's life is in danger when that gun went off. What if it went off to the right instead of the left, right? What if it didn't shoot at the garbage can and it shot at the stall next to him? And now you got to explain to me why my kid got a bullet in their body, right? So I think there's a huge lack of school protocol. I think the police could have handled that situation better than maybe approaching him in that environment that was already constricted. Now, we don't know all the details. I do think that there's more information that needs to be released to the public. And to be honest, I do think that that's another red flag for cultural competence. With the officer grabbing the gun and things of that sort. I can't tell you what that's like because I haven't experienced anything like that. I know from my experience with dealing with young people with weapons, is the first thing is you keep them calm. And you do that by you remaining calm. Okay? You explain it to them that, hey, whatever the situation is, we're going to work it out, baby. You understand? But one thing we not going to do, me and you both, is we're not going to make the situation worse. Right? We're not going to do that. That's not an option. Now, that comes from relationship. That comes from being a person, not being a position. Right? And that also comes from cultural competence as well. Right? Emotional intelligence and all these different things. So I can't really speak too much to the unfortunate outcome of Mr. Thompson. I do think that there's also another cry for help on us doing a better job at raising our children, though, to be honest, and us ensuring that our children don't believe it's okay to bring weapons into a school building or any of those things. But this is the last point I'm going to make. I know I'm long-winded. KP made a very, very big statement, and I understand his hurt, and I feel the same hurt of us watching videos where nearly the same example happens with white people. I was gonna say non-black or brown. We're gonna speak facts. White people having weapons, white people being verbally or physically violent towards police, and them not being killed or hurt. We have to just genuinely understand that the rules of the game are different for us. I mean, are we working towards getting a level playing field? Yes, that is our responsibility to continue to work towards that place. But we cannot any longer continue to cry wolf and not believe that the rules are not different for us.
Right.
It just is what it is. It is what it is. And I believe the reason why we're not doing a good job at raising our young people as well as maybe past generations is because past generations understood that reality. They understood that, hey, even though they look at us less than, it doesn't mean that we are less than, but there is a better way to, and there is a proper way to interact with law enforcement. And this is the way that you're going to do it because your responsibility is to make it home to me, baby. Now, whatever happens after that, we're going to figure it out. Whether we got to get a lawyer or we got to march or whatever it is, but you got to make sure you come home to me. You have to. If we can't do that, I can't help you. And you're not going to break my heart. You understand? And there's not enough of those conversations. We're so focused on being right that were being killed in the process, right? And we can't bring a body back. We can't bring a life back. We can have arguments and testify and do all of those things that we want, but nothing gonna bring them lives back. So we just have to, in closing, we have to understand that as the game stands, the rules are different for Black and brown people, and until they holistically change, we have to make it a priority to ensure our own safety, right? Not be an individual that's showing any kind of aggression or violence and things of that sort. I mean, there is a responsibility that we have for us in our own conduct, and that comes from raising. So, you know, Big Mike, or Malcolm, I'm not sure if you want to go next, but I'm very interested. Well, Mike, I'm very interested to see your perspective and kind of capitalize on any of these points that we made, man.
Yeah, and real quick, I want to go off that last point you were just talking about. And like when I was in the street, I told people all the time, like, officers aren't always right, but you can't hold court in the street because you will lose. Either you're gonna end up hurt, dead, or with much more charges. Like that's why I like when people say comply. Sometimes that's the best thing to do, even if you know you're not wrong, and fight it in court. Because like if you try to hold court in the street, you're gonna lose. I try to tell people that all the time. It's not worth it. I understand sometimes the officers are wrong, that they're human. They can be wrong. Do not try to hold court in the street because it always ends up bad for the person. Always ends up bad. But that was a good point.
So what I hear comply, and I know this is general. I'm not really giving you too much. But what do you, because like my focus, I don't care what the feds do. Like the police, I do care, but like I'm so worried. What can we do? Like Josh said, I'm not, they gonna do what they do. What can we do to adjust to make the chances as best as possible in our favor? So like what
And,
advice? I got a bunch of young men about to graduate. So they at that 18-year-old age, and young ladies, I guess. What's your advice to them about handling police and conflict?
first thing, off that point before I get to that, first thing I want to say, another thing I tell people, like if it's situations you can handle without calling the police, do that. Because there's been plenty of calls I went to that we get there and it's a situation that we really didn't need to be called. Because when you're introducing a cop, you don't know what kind of cops come into that situation. And every time a cop come, a gun is being introduced into that situation, even if it wasn't one in there before. So I always tell people, like, if it's a situation you can handle, you don't think nobody's going to get harmed or anything like that, I say don't call the police, because you call police to try to be a counselor to a situation that they don't know what's going on. And like you said, like we were saying earlier about the culture, a lot of times they can't relate to a lot of stuff. So they see something, and it would be something normal, a normal argument for us, or our temperaments or how we act will be normal to us, but to them they see it at another level. So then some officers come in and take stuff to another level when it doesn't have to go there. So I always say, if it's a situation you can handle without calling the cops, I would suggest on to try to take care of yourself. Don't introduce them to that situation. As far as what we can do, like a lot of people don't want to hear it, but the situation of just complying, I know it's easier said than done, especially when you know a cop either harassing you, racial profiling, and everything like that. But just comply, because you could fight it in court. You can't fight if you're dead. And like then without complying, like I said, sometimes you end up getting hurt, end up with more charges and stuff that look worse than it is just from you not complying. Because the officer can be 100% wrong, or officer cannot have much to go off. They can stop you for something regular, but once you keep walking or once you're restrained, it takes stuff to another level. So it goes from them being in the wrong, and now they can say you in the wrong because you didn't do this, you didn't do that. So it just adds on to it. So I say, like, just comply as best as possible to try to avoid stuff. Like I said, I know it's easier said than done. It's not the answer a lot of people want to hear, but that's really what it is, bro.
And let me jump back in, KG, because thank God for Justin Mike, because I've been doing backwards. Well, number one, we ain't white.
Right.
We ain't white. We will never be white. We've never been white. We black. So we cannot compare like what's fair and not. It don't matter. It's never. It would be different if it was fair before, and like then all of a sudden it changed. It ain't never been fair since we got taken over hundreds of years ago. Never been. And it's more fair today than it's ever been. So we like in the best situation we could ever dream of from the it is what it is standpoint. And all y'all know me my whole life. Every time these situations happen, I always talk about what can we do. I always talk about comply. That little boy didn't comply, and Mike, I would like to know what you think. The boy in the white tee, the white beater, he complied. Right, as soon as they got like you got to know. I'm teaching not yo when the feds come, they right. And like maybe one day, like I've been to court with police and other things by myself, no lawyer. I won. I'm 4 for 4. I'm 4 for 4 because I know the law. I fight in the courtroom. I had the guns pointed at me, handcuffed, patty. I've been through it all, bro. Not all, but like all these, I've had the chance to go through it all. But I've handled it well. Like I said, over 100 times. Over 100 times. Like you just complied. Now, if that was my son, number one, I would like to believe that we would have had a conversation during those first 2 arguments with his girl. I'm gonna come get you, or whatever the case may be. Or I would like to have a relationship with his girlfriend's mother to where me and her can talk before she called in the feds. Right? I don't know what the parenting situation was, and I know with Micaiah, she's a foster kid, and even more than African American males in African Americans, period. The by far the majority of inmates in American prison are results of the foster system. They're foster kids, right? And there were adults involved in the situation. I don't know who and what, but there were adults involved, right? So and that the most dangerous people forget, like, and Mike, you speak on this as a police officer. The top 2 most dangerous situations are domestic violence, number 1,
and car stops.
Right? And what'd you say?
And car stops.
And car stops, right? Now this wasn't a car stop, but it was similar. Yo, put your hands out. Let them see your hands. Take your hands out your pocket. He did not comply. And when you don't comply, they know that there's something in your pocket. So they're on guard. It's drugs or a gun. Or you stole something. They already know. Right? And then we talked about last week about empathy, assertiveness, and respect. That was disrespectful to the feds. Yo, man, what the fuck y'all doing here? And man, these niggas here doing that, all that cool stuff. And like you can't really speak on that you worked in a high school. Like, that's so disrespectful. And you don't know what's coming after that. And the school resource officer was there, so he knows. I done told plenty of kids, yo, come see me in the bathroom. 2017, a kid told me he was going to shoot me in my face in the parking lot. Yo, I drive the gray Magnum. We can go there right now. I'll wait for you, and I'm going to knock you the fuck out. That's exactly what I told him. So me, yo, come me in the bathroom. Like you don't disrespect somebody that got a gun, even if you got one, because you don't know what you're doing what you're doing with it. And there's 3 of them, right? And we need to stop focusing on what they're doing. Now, if it's wrong, it's wrong. Like it's been a couple L's. That's undeniable. But a lot of the times there were things we could do differently. Yo, just let them win in the moment and go to court.
Mm-hmm.
Go to court. Yo, do 10 years. If you got to do 10 years instead of your daughter can never see you again. Or you never get to have a daughter. You never get to have a son, right? So we control what we do. And I also don't like when they compare different police. Well, they didn't shoot that white person. Was that the same officer who killed the black person? That's like saying you got a teacher with one class with a bad student who can handle the bad student, but then that bad student or a bad student of a different race gets handled differently by a different teacher. It's a whole different person. We can't compare that. It's a whole different person. Let me talk about other countries. America has one of the loosest gun laws of any country in the world. A lot of other countries, like, you can't even have a gun. Right now, they get them illegally, just like Americans, but we can legally. There's so much more guns here than a lot of other countries. Like in England and London, their thing is knife crime. Right? It's not gun violence, right? So you got to be aware of, like, oh, well, you showing the European video, you don't even know their laws, and that wasn't a European cop that shot the black kid in DC. Right? The Derek cop, that wasn't no W. He did something wrong, yeah, but this is a loss. This is a loss. There's no victory. I was like, what y'all happy for? He did it.
Right.
All right. He got off or whatever. Whatever. It's still a loss. Look at what happened to Mr. Floyd, his family, and everybody else that witnessed that, the whole world, and all of the riots. It's a major L. There's no victory. Right? Yes, people want to get held accountable. Yes, that's undeniable. But it's not a victory. Right? And then last thing before I let Mike go again, I agree with Josh, but at the same time, I don't know. Cause I had went to my son's school, like this was like 2 years ago now. He had like a presentation, Valentine's Day presentation. And I checked in, but then I just walked in. It blew me away. I was like, yo, there's no, I was so used to metal detectors, like it was weird to not have it. I was like, should school be like that? And at this point, probably yeah. Um, but it does feel weird to walk into a school with no metal detector. So I'm very, very passionate about us focusing on us. Like Mike said, don't call the police unless you have to. So in the most times, like don't why are you tripping because you pulled me over? Like it's been a couple times. I was talking about something in the group chat. Nobody talked about these police the past couple of weeks that they pulled somebody over and they just walked up and got shot. Or the ones that from the husband or the wife that was outraged and the police showed up and got shot. They scared. Now that does not mean that they kill you, and it does not mean that you should die. That's not what I'm saying. But we have a responsibility to handle things better before they get there, when they get there, and after. I'm not worried about what they do because we can't control. We never could. So what can we do to at least make them 100% guilty in those situations? I've been in fights. Pizzle, no. All y'all know. Especially at the college level. So many fights. The feds get there, stop. You can stomp me out. It's over. Because it only takes one little thing for them to go into protection mode. And like with you, like the kid from DC last year who got killed. He took the gun out and he threw it. He wasn't trying to shoot nobody, but as soon as you go down, yo, and if you wait that 1 second, that cop might not ever see his family again. What would you do? You gonna wait and see? They're not social workers. They when there's a social worker needed, they call in a negotiator, a specialist. These regular dudes and regular women, and ex-military and dudes that were bullies and dudes that got bullied. They regular people. They're not people that's coming there and like in a gunfight. Luckily, I ain't never been in one, but you're not thinking like you're thinking without guns involved. Oh, he got his hand in his pocket. Boom. That's all it takes. You got to think first. That's why Mike said, I'm putting words in his mouth, but comply. Take the power out of their hands. It does not matter what they do. Some of it will be wrong. Some of it will be right. But what we control as men and women, that's what matters. That's what matters. And we need to be angry with ourselves first, because even with all of these police killings, we blowing them out the water. The black on black. All right, so KG, then let Mike jump in, then Jess.
Yeah, so we have a comment that says the term innocent until proven guilty is not our reality. I just wanted to point that out because I know it just came up while you were talking. But my comment was to Mike. To Mike, like, what's your like? What would you suggest if someone just got pulled over? Obviously, like some people's idea of complying is different, right? Like some people may comply but give a lot of attitude. Some people may be standoffish. Like, what's your definition of complying, right? And then also, like, have you ever been in a situation where someone that you've been working with kind of got a little power hungry, and did you ever have to stand up and in front of them and be like, yo, like, chill, man, like, because that's one thing that, you know, obviously like Malcolm said, I agree 100%. We got to control our actions and things like that. But I'm curious to see, is it like, do you have like meetings, as obviously as much as you can say, like, but do you guys hold each other accountable if someone like kind of makes like a bad judgment or gets a little too aggressive out there? How does that handle? So the first part is, what's your definition of complying in terms of like when you're stopping someone or whenever you're having a conversation? And then the second part is, has it ever been a time, or do you all hold each other accountable when someone kind of goes overboard?
All right. So as far as like the complying part, like let's say somebody in a car stop. In situations, somebody will be driving without a license, will have a fake temp tag on their car, get pulled over, and then be mad that they got pulled over for something they're doing and they want to have an attitude. Like a situation like that, like if you know you're wrong, go ahead and take your L, take your ticket. And most of the time, when you do comply or when you are respectful, you're not going to get a ticket. Nobody wants to write out a ticket for little shit. They're just doing their stops because they have to. So like a situation like that, roll your window down, make sure they're able to see your hands. You got your license, registration, everything legit. Give it to them. And if you don't, like, take that L. You can't get mad because you're getting pulled over for something you did. Like you're driving around without a license, your car not registered and stuff like that, and then want to catch your attitude. You got pulled over. That's you can't do that. Like that's not you go. It's easier to comply. You feel me? Get your ticket, get your one, whatever, and keep it moving. But when you start getting mad, catching the attitude, like we said, cops are humans too. So they pulling you over for a violation you committed. Now you're mad at them, so now you're getting tickets. Now you're getting all irate. It might end up in you getting pulled out the car, and it should get taken to a level that it have to. When you can simply take your ticket, keep moving, or you can take your warning and keep moving, and like live to see another day. It ain't worth it to escalate something, especially if you know you're wrong, or like say something simple as a ticket or a warning. So that's my take on that. There was your second part. My bad.
Also, one last thing. Do you advise people to, like, as soon as they get pulled over, would you advise them to start, like, even if it's not directly in the office, or do you advise them to start recording?
Yeah, I would like because like I said, cops are human. Some cops are assholes. So it's not gonna hurt to record. It can only help you. So, but some people be obvious where they'll record, put the phone up in the cop face, and start doing stuff like that. I don't suggest doing stuff like that. I'll escalate the situation. But if you want to record for your safety, go ahead, put your phone to the side so it could record the interaction. And a lot of times, in some situations, it'll be your word right there, and of course, they don't take the cop word, and so you have your proof. So I'm definitely not against recording. I would, if you think it make you feel safer, or you think it help you in the long run, record. Go ahead, comply. So if they try to say this happened or that happened, you got your proof. So
Perfect, perfect. Appreciate you. And what I said before was, in a situation, say if somebody that you're working with gets a little aggressive, um, and like when y'all get back in the car, you get back to the station or whatever, do you all hold each other accountable? Like, yo, dude, like, yo, my boy, like, I don't think you really had to do XYZ. Like, I think you could have handled it a little better. How does that interaction see? Because it's a lot of times I see it in different situations. You see other, like the one with the military guy, in Virginia, like the one dude,
right.
right? Like the one
Hmm.
cop that, like, you can visibly see the other dude was uncomfortable, right?
Right,
Like
definitely.
he was with, like, so, like, my thing is, do you is it do we not see it enough, or like does it actually happen? Because a lot of times we don't see in a lot of these videos the other officers stepping up and be like, yo, like, you know, chill, like, or we can handle this the other way. So what's your answer on that?
Right, and definitely like in that situation right there, you can tell just from watching the video, you can tell the other officer was the younger officer, and the other cop was his superior because he was listening to him and he wouldn't make a move without him. So you can tell us that's what that was in that situation. But with me, like the people that work with me know how I am. I work in the city where I'm from, so they know a lot. Like go upstairs. My dog all on my face. They know a lot of that stuff won't fly with me. And if something does happen, I'm not waiting until we get to the station because first of all, when situations happen and escalate, you're on the scene, you're now part of that, so you can lose your job for that. And also just morally, it's certain shit I can't let fly. I had a situation where a guy I graduated with, so we was on the same level. He was doing a car stop. He had the guy in cuffs. He was arresting him, and the guy started getting all loud with him. And he was talking, and he was purposely talking. He spit on the guy, like not just flat out spit, but like talking. And he spit on him, and the cop grabbed him. And then the thing is, like, you don't ever put your hands on somebody when they in cuffs. It's done. You don't put your hands on nobody in cuffs. So he grabbed him, and you could tell he was mad. And I jumped right in, 'cause, like, that was just the voice situation. Like, for one, even though the guy was an asshole, you don't hit nobody in cuffs. And for two, like, we would have all been in a bad situation. You feel me? That's a situation where that guy was 100% wrong. But once, if that cop would have put his hands on him, he'd have been in the wrong situation. And like, I wasn't gonna let that happen in front of me. You feel me? So situation like that, you gotta speak up. You can't wait, cause you wait, stuff might turn bad, and then you got somebody that's dead or injured, and the guy goes from being wrong now it's on us. You can't. You gotta speak up.
Thanks, Mike.
KP, KP, did you have something before I comment?
Yeah, one thing I'll say, and I think Malk touched on it too, is that a great point is that these cops aren't social workers, and I think that's like where my cry comes out from, like being better policing, right? Being able to train. I think KG, you talked about it too, where having more professional developments where you teach people and try to train people about these situations, so that way, or provide them with knowledge of how African Americans are, right? Or if you see people get in fights, like Just mentioned, you a white cop and you see two, you know what I mean, you see a brawl on the front lawn, you thinking, oh, it's rowdy, I gotta bring my gun out. But to an African American officer, you're just like, all right, it might be two young girls fighting, right? So I think it's bringing that knowledge to them, teaching them, and having those professional developments with the cops to ensure that it's effective policing. I think is one way to kind of combat all of this. So I just wanted to
Yeah,
share that.
real quick off your point, and that's real. And then I feel like it should be more training because I had a guy I graduated with. All right, I'm from Camden, so it's nothing to me. But I had this one guy I graduated with. He really didn't deal with black people his whole life. He's 20 years old, coming to be a cop, and the city at one point was the most dangerous city in the country. And you're coming to be a cop, and there's stuff you don't experience. So you're sending a 20-year-old cop to a house in an environment he's never been in to try to deal with situations. Like some of these people have been married longer than you've been alive, and you're going to domestic. So really, what can you tell them? Like, so I do feel like it should be more cultural training. We do a good job of it, but I think in other departments and stuff like that, they should really harp on stuff like that because that was just crazy to me. Even though I work with somebody like that, that was just crazy to me. Like imagining like somebody coming to your house, 20 years old, telling you what to do, and like you've been married longer than he's been alive. So what can a 20-year-old tell me that had no counseling experience? So situation like that, I feel like on that point we do have to do more of that training on stuff like that.
And then to kind of add on that too, I saw an older African American man. He said this the other day, and it kind of hit different. He said, "Yo, give a 22-year-old man a uniform, a badge, a gun, in a souped up car, and tell me he ain't gonna act different." And I sat there and I thought about it, and I'm like, yo, actually, you think about if I had a badge, a gun, a nice little Hemi Charger, you know what I mean? I may not act completely different, but I'm a act in a certain way. So I think when you couple that with the non-training or not having the professional development, it's a bad mixture for these situations that have been occurring. So,
and also this was his first job, so imagine that your first job in your life. So
right.
I think stuff like that that's kind of crazy to me, but you know.
I was holding on to this idea, and we've been talking about compliance, right? Now all of us have, work in schools, and we see the normal culture of a lack of compliance in schools, right? So like that behavior has already been reinforced. It's become a normal part of that young person's approach to any authority or anytime that they're trying to be held accountable. A lack of compliance is their automatic response. Unfortunately, when you have that behavior, that kind of approach in a school system, in a school building, it's a safe place. You understand? There's not going to be any threat to your life in that kind of situation. You might get detention, you might get suspended, you might get whatever those things are. Unfortunately, that same behavior is then brought out into the community, and the repercussions are completely different for this one reason. I'm super upset personally when I'm handled by police officers and law enforcement by the profile that I give, by the profile that I am. I'm a young black male. I got dreads. I got a beard. I speak assertively. Things of that sort, right? I'm upset that I'm handled in a profile that it doesn't meet the reality of who I am, but I also understand it. Okay. And the reality is because unfortunately, there are enough cases and enough evidence of individuals who fit my profile that handle themselves differently, that I can't have the expectation of a police officer, law enforcement, or anybody that doesn't know me individually to know that I'm different than that profile. And that's something that I have to be honest about, to be honest with you, right? So I can't really get upset that when we're in Miami during that time, and I'm literally having a conversation with the police officer saying, hey, look, I just don't understand why you're pulling us over. I don't understand why. I genuinely don't understand. And his response is, get off the bike or I'm going to tackle you off the bike. Wow. Right. And I get it, man. Don't get me wrong. That was a younger version of myself. I had completely no understanding of the difference of environmental norms. We happen to be in Florida. I had no idea what stand your ground was. I had no idea how different police officers' approach are to people who look like us. Because in my area where I grew up, it was a diverse area. I mean, you know, I didn't grow up in the South. I grew up in the Northeast, right? So my interaction with police officers are completely different. And that was God's grace that had me be able to get back home that day, eventually get back home through the threshold of my house, be able to see my parents again, right? But unfortunately, there's not enough people who understand that, the profile that you hold, you do have to be responsible for and understand those realities. Now, this is the last point I'm going to make. Us as Black people, we also can't deny the fact that most of us live in war zones. Okay? I mean, it just is what it is. Young people, adults, they experience PTSD and they exhibit those behaviors because we are living in war zones. It is not normal to hear gunshots on a normal basis. Okay? It's just not normal. That is maybe the reason why when you get other cultures that become police officers and now they're injected in these communities, oh man, their spidey senses and their lack of awareness on what the norms are gets them into a heightened mode of survival, right? That's the only reason why people drawing their guns so quickly. Oh man, I gotta draw, no different than war. And there's a rapper that I listen to called Sue Surf, and he said a line that I'll never forget that I think fits perfectly. He said, forget the war in Iraq. It's a war out back where a lot of dudes pop and a lot of dudes crack. Shit, the system tried to give me 5 years for a strap, but if I get caught slipping, they won't bring my ass back. Right? Now, he understands completely the situation that he living in. I'm living in a war zone. I know the threat of my freedom is on the line on carrying a gun, but that is worth the reality. That is worth the consequence. But because if I get caught slipping without having a gun, it's going to be my life. Now, that is also a reality that police officers are stepping into in many of these urban communities that fit this profile and things of that sort. Not to say that all of these police shooting incidences are happening, in these environments. But I mean, if we're going to be honest, many of them are happening in mostly Black and brown communities, though, right? There's that random, highway car stop and things of that sort. And definitely maybe, some realities of cultural, racism, coming from the police officer or lack of cultural competence. But I mean, Eric Brown, Baltimore, Ma'Khia Bryant, I'm not sure where exactly she at in Ohio, but it was all Black people outside, right? And I think, there's enough going on for us to understand that many of our all Black and brown communities, there's a norm that we are comfortable with of people having guns or people having conflict that's not healthy, or us not even knowing what healthy conflict is, let alone be able to model it once we get older or we are faced with our own conflicts, right? I mean, like you're saying, Mike, You got people that's married longer than 20 years that don't know how to have healthy conflict. And a 20-year-old officer is coming into the building. I mean, coming into their home, right? I mean, you would think that if you've been together with somebody 20 years, y'all have a system established to be able to handle conflict when conflict comes about, because conflict is a normal part of a relationship, right? But I mean, the reality of that isn't true. And I'm definitely open to anybody and everybody's response to those last couple statements that I made.
I want to speak on real quick about how we deal with conflict. I ain't get to speak on the Makai situation. What I want to bring up is that could have been avoided on so many situations. So allegedly, the older male that was standing out there when it happened was her dad. And if you watch the video, after she lunges at the first girl and knocks her on the ground, it looks like he starts to kick that female. And then that's when she goes to attack the other girl. Oh yeah, and I want to speak on this. Like the cops, we aren't trained to like shoot the leg, shoot the arm, and stuff like that. We're trained to shoot center mass. And then we're not allowed to do warning shots because you shoot a bullet in the air, it got to come down somewhere and stuff like that. So we don't shoot warning shots. And then we're trained to shoot center mass. But to my point, I was gonna make, like, that's supposed to be your dad right there. So instead of trying to control your daughter, uh, after she lunges at somebody, you proceed to kick somebody on the ground, and then when she gets shot, that's when you start saying, "I know you didn't shoot my baby," but like that situation right there was crazy to me. Like instead of trying to stop your daughter, and then he obviously sees the cop, because the cops pulled up right in front of him, and then the cop is standing there where she knocked the girl over at. But like being a parent in your mind, I don't think my daughter's trying to attack somebody, even if she didn't have a knife in her hand. Like you don't think my daughter's trying to attack somebody in front of the cops. You know the situation. You know how stuff is going these days and ages. So, like, I have a 15-year-old daughter. So, and last thing in my mind would be to start attacking another girl, for one, a younger female, and for two, in front of the cops, and then three, like, your daughter's right there. So, in my mind, being a parent, it would be to stop my daughter. I wouldn't have had her out there in that situation, period. But let's say it did happen. In my mind, it would be to stop my daughter. He has to be held accountable for that too, because that's another thing, is us not being able to handle or how we were brought up culturally, like to go out there and fight with your daughter with a bunch of girls out there rather than try to stop the situation.
Hey, Mike. I know Malcolm definitely attests to this, but there's been so many situations where we have parents come up to the school to fight children for their child, right? And I mean, you talk about reinforcing negative, terrible behavior. It's completely it's beyond me, man. I can't even put it in words, but I will say that is a norm, right? That behavior and that mindset is normal in the community. So for anybody that goes against it, we happen to be the outsiders or the sore thumb in the situation, right? I think that you bringing up that point about Makai's dad, or if it was a stepdad or foster parent or whatever it is, he reinforced the behavior that his daughter ultimately had to be held accountable for, right? And that's basically bringing up the point that Malcolm is saying, is we have to see what part that we play in the story, in the situation, so that we can put ourselves in the best situation and remain safe. But that right there, I mean, let alone talk about you being a grown man and that being a young lady and you putting your foot or your hands on her. I mean, that in itself is I mean, terrible and wrong on many different levels. I don't care what the situation is.
Yeah, and that's like everything, and y'all just give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Mike did not come on here defending police. Like, this is what y'all gotta do. I don't hear that, right? But what I am hearing him basically scream is like what I'm screaming. Like, yo, take care of your business without us. Because if we come, we just human. We're just trying to help. There's a lot of people who not from here, XYZ, you don't know how it could go. We got all this training, but if you can do it by yourself, do it by yourself. All right? Y'all agree? Mike, I'm with you. All right. So, and then I'm hearing comply. Like the military dude did not comply. He was not violent. He put his hands out. Yes. Number one, get out the car. He wouldn't get out. Get out. Get out. Now, there's no guarantee he wouldn't have got maced or killed, but probably not. Get out and lay down. I wanted to know that too. He did not comply. Everybody got so blinded by his uniform, he ain't comply. Right? And then I don't know where y'all from. Like I've been in the mix, but these days, the last 20 years, a fight is just not a fight. A fight, I'm getting prepared for shooting. So he not from this culture. I'm from this culture. If I see a fight, I was a fan. I'm getting ready. My gun is going to be on my mind. Because dudes don't fight these days, yo. First dude get knocked out. By the time he get up, boom, done. You feel me? Right? So a fight is just not a fight. It's not just a fight. I remember I had went, this is like 2 years ago, I went to Chipotle with T right around school let out time. Luckily, we drove two different cars because we went two different ways after. But when I was walking, they was high schoolers, maybe some recent graduates, right on right there by Target in Northwest Columbia Heights. Everybody started fighting, so I just went to grab her. She wasn't even with me because I was going to run across the street because I didn't forget the punches. I knew the shot was coming, right? So cultural balance or not, a fight is just not a fight. So that part is irrelevant, right? And then this ain't about training. I look at police just like I look at teachers. I can't tell you how much training that we get. Some people get. Some people got it. Some people don't. Some people from the hood.
I want to talk about that too. But yeah, I want to talk about that. I got a couple stories. My bad. Go ahead.
All right, good. Don't forget, I got like one more point. But like how we had Chris last week. Chris is not from the hood. He's from the Jersey Shore. Oh, put him in a room with 100 million people, black people. He's good. From the most delightful kid to the demon kid, he gonna figure it out, right? And then another big thing is like respect. Where's the respect? Like I wanted to knock Just out in Miami myself. He was being disrespectful. It was like 5, 6, 7 of us. He the only one that was rapping. Like, yo, let's take the L. We did. It was by the book. We didn't make the proper turn. You feel me? He could ride around Miami all day and pull people over that. Right? But let's leave it at that so we can go do what we do. But that whole process got extended because Just was running his mouth. As opposed to another time, another trip to Miami, Pizzle got pulled over. Yo, Pizzle took the L like a champ. We all waited and we was out. He was respectful. We was wrong. Like we be wrong. Like Mike said, if you ain't got your license and you wrong, bro, take the L. You might get that fed who's 20 and scared. Or get that fed who just got divorced and his kid is a drug addict and he ain't right in his mind. And he really only coming to work because he need the money. And the first drop of a piece of hair, he ready to shoot. So a big thing is respect. And an event, I think that's also why my perspective on this is so different. Like the last year in the building, one time I heard this security guard right outside. I was real cool with her, still am. I heard her like scream. And there's this dude, big dude, 8th grader. He got these scissors. He about to stab her. So I ran down there, boom, tackled him. And you ask Chris, I fought with him for like, I swear it felt like 3 hours. Because there's so many rules for the kids that, we got to wait for there's a special group of social workers that come during traumatic events. And then all these kinds of rules. So it's just me. Thank God I was there. Somebody who can fight this big kid. He wasn't fighting me all the way because we had a good relationship, but I had to fight for them scissors. He was really trying to get the lady. And then he really turned up as soon as he saw the police. And he was so scared and terrified or whatever. They were just chilling, no guns and all this looking, but they couldn't do anything. Right? And those kind of situations happen over and 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 over again. And there's no rules in school. There's none. I always tell the story. Once again, 2 years ago, an 8th grader punched a 70-year-old lady in the face on an elevator on camera. Friday. She was in my class Monday. That's the only student I ever put out. She left the school in handcuffs. But because of all these rules, she was back on Monday. So it's like, what kind of things are they teaching these kids? So that's why I'm like, I couldn't imagine. I always tell my kids, if I ever see you driving next to me, I'm pulling over because I'm scared. Like, you shouldn't be driving. So I can only imagine the kind of young men and women that these police got to deal with. And once again, they shouldn't be getting killed for nothing. That's not my problem.
Right.
I don't trip off of that because we can't control that. I know that a lot of these situations, there are things that we lost control of that led to them coming around. But Mike, you said you wanted to elaborate on you don't have to be from the hood, just relate to the people statement.
Right. What I was gonna say, everybody's built different. Um, like I'm no superhero, but I got a certain type of temperament. I'm not phased easily. I'm calm and cool. And I've been through some shit. Like when we was going to school out in Willem, bro, I got stabbed in the seventh. So I got stabbed in the seventh or eighth grade out there fighting. I've been shot at before, so I grew up a little bit different. So I have a certain kind of temperament. I just wanted to tell certain stories. Like I had this one story when I think it was my second year on when I see these kids running. They see our car, you start running. So you know me, I'm circling around to see what's going on, making sure they're good. And then he starts to put something in his book bag and he stops. He doesn't know I'm watching him, and he puts something on his waist. Obviously, I'm like, it's probably a gun. So they run through an alleyway. I cut them off. I get out. I'm just sitting there talking to them. I'm like, yo, y'all good? Y'all running around? And then when you in a cop, when you see people, the sign that they're about to run is or they want to fight, they always pull up their pants. So he did the pull his pants. So I'm like, all right, he about to either swing on me or he about to run. But as soon as he does that, and mind you, we're in a dark alley. As soon as he does that, I see the butt of the gun on his right side. You feel me? And I didn't know if he was reaching for the gun. Originally, I thought he was pulling up his pants. But then when I seen the butt of the gun, you feel me? I could have easily pulled my gun out and try to shoot or pull my gun out on a situation, but me, like I said, I'm calm and cool. So I'm like, I'm way bigger than him. And I'm stronger than him. So instead of pulling my gun out, I just charge him and put him up against the wall and grab both his arms. I grabbed both his arms. Then my partner pulled the gun out of his side, which ended up being a fake gun. It was a BB gun. And so I, and he lived only being 16 years old. So I wasn't trying to do him dirty and not like that. So we didn't charge him with it because it's not illegal to have a BB gun. You feel me? You just need to charge on the way you carry it or the actions you're doing when you have it. So I took it from him, and now I sat there. I tried to talk to him. I called his mom. His mom was upset because like people getting killed for less. So in that situation right there, and just talking about that with the cops. Some cops are saying like, "Yo, you better than me because I ain't got no time to decipher if it's a real gun or a fake gun." And that's the mentality a lot of cops have. Because like at the end of the day, I do want to help people, but I got my own kids and family to go home to. But some cops were saying when I was talking to them about it, they're like, "Yeah, you better than me. Cause I'm not taking my time to see if you got a real gun or see if you actually pulling it out. I'm not waiting for you to shoot at me." But in that situation, and then the crazy part about it is that the kid was mad at me. He said it's only a fake gun. I'm like, yeah, bro, but I don't know that. I'm like, you have a whole book bag, so why are you walking around with it on your hip? I'm like we're in Camden. Like people get shot for less. Now, if you get into an interaction or altercation with somebody and they see that gun and they got a gun, what you gonna do with this fake BB gun, bro? Like so that's one situation where it could have went bad, but like I said, my temperament's a little bit different. And my next situation, which is most recent, it didn't happen even a month ago. So as you know now, I'm a detective, and we I don't ride around in a marked patrol car. Feel me? I don't look like a cop. So we had a situation where we go around, we look for certain people wanted for stuff. So we driving around, and we see this guy, and he sees us, me and my partner in the car, and he grabs at his waist. I'm like, I'm like, circle the block real quick. I'm like, look like he was reaching for something. And then sure enough, we come back around, and he pulls the gun out, and he doesn't raise it at it and point it at us, but he pulled the gun out and he used his other hand, and he waving for us to come here. And then that's when I recognized who it was. And this guy has 4 gun charges. He's been in shooting before. So that's another situation. Like just being off of the history of knowing him and everything, we could easily stop the car, pulled out our guns, but that wouldn't have been a smart situation. Like I said, initially, I don't think he knew we were detectives, so we de-escalated the situation by not. We drove around the block and we called it out to get marked units in the area, but we could have easily hopped out, guns drawn, and returned to a full blown shootout. And he was with his boy, and they both probably would end up dead because I'm sure they can't shoot as well as us, and they both probably end up dead just because he wanted to be a tough guy and pull out a gun. And it was crazy to me because this was at 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, yo, he literally pulled the gun on us just because he seen us drive past him twice. Like literally, and that was just crazy to me. I couldn't fathom that. Like people really think like that in the hood, like just to be tough, just to prove a point. Like he pulled the gun out because we drove past him twice, And then when I recognized who he was, it made more sense because he has beef in the hood, but stuff like that. It's 11 o'clock in the morning, and you out here ready to get in shootouts, full blown shootouts, just because somebody drove past you twice. So that was crazy to me too. But the reason why I'm telling that story because a lot of the cops, once they see that gun is on, they don't have the temperament to not do stuff right away, and also they're not thinking, let me see what he's about to do with that gun. They're thinking, I'm going home at the end of the day. They see people as a threat or a target when you see stuff like that. But that's two situations right there where it would have been wrong in my eyes to shoot a 16-year-old. It's wrong in my eyes to shoot by period. But those, if I'd have gotten to shooting both of those times, they both would have been legally justified. But that's something I couldn't live with, like shooting a kid, because they both were young.
Hey, Mike, I want to ask you one quick question, then I want to address these comments, and I want to respect your time and let you get out of here. But my quick question from what you said, I know this is like a debate we often have in the group chat. It's usually me, Just, and Mace, and everybody else has an opposite kind of perspective. What does your wife? I'm assuming you told your wife that story. You saw the gun and you didn't know it was a BB gun, and you chose to handle it the way that you handled it, which is courageous. But me, I don't know. I ain't in that situation. I don't know if I would have did it that way. So what does your wife say about you having that kind of caring heart and that kind of patience when your life, her husband, and her children's father's life is on the line? What does she say about that?
She deals with it because she knows me. She know how I am. Like I said, I'm a superhero. But I try to avoid. Like I said, I ain't out here to hurt nobody. I'm out here trying to help people, save people, stuff. So like I can't. You feel me? But I feel like I don't think she likes it. I don't think how she likes certain situations. But then at the same time, she don't want me out there shooting no kids, stuff like that. So she just prays for me, hope that I be safe. But she knows it comes with the job. She knows a part of what I do.
Yeah, all power to her, bro. All power to her. So let's jump into some comments and we get out of here. So one from a little while back. Shooting someone to kill is always the last resort in every country that has Western freedoms like we do in America. And we know that they never shoot first with those who are not of African or Black descent. Police choose when they escalate situations they are unlikely training to handle. Unlikely trained to handle. I would assume.
Uniquely.
Uniquely. You
Oh,
good, my boy?
I teach math, not English. Not unlikely. Uniquely, it still should be trained. That's what threw me off. Uniquely trained to handle. So what's your comments on that, man? I think you kind of answered that. I think you kind of said like you got a choice. Like you just said, you was legally justified to
Right.
fire those two young men in those cases, but you chose not to. So would you like to
I,
elaborate on that, or you already answered that?
No,
can I
yeah,
jump?
that's pretty much it. Like you're trained. There's protocol for certain stuff, but everybody mentality different. Everybody been through different stuff, so everybody not gonna react the same way. Some people they take the justified way out. They're not gonna wait to see what you're doing. Like if I'm, I could legally shoot you for grabbing that gun. Some cops are gonna do that. Like it all depends on your temperament, your level of thinking, and how secure you are with. Like I said, I was secure with knowing that I was way stronger than that kid, that he wasn't gonna get a chance to pull a gun out. So I put hands on him rather than pull my gun out. Some people are like, listen, this kid might be stronger than me. I'm not gonna find out. I'm gonna pull my gun out. So depends on the person.
Gotcha.
I also think that your involvement with being kind of early in your life, being in altercations and situations, and you're dabbling in the streets gives you a little bit different of a perspective, right? Because now you can sympathize and empathize with those people who are in those situations where you face them, right? Because you have maybe been in a mindset or predicament that they have been in. So that's another thing that you have working well for you, right? Is you actually were kind of living that type of life before you transition to being a law enforcement, right? So I think that's one thing that we haven't really said that I think is very important for you, right? The ability for you to understand those kids, because you at one point were like them as well, also helps you in this situation. Where so that's something that can't go unnoticed as well.
All right. I think we got two more. So this question is for Mike. It seems like there's more white police officers on the force than black or brown cops. What suggestions do you recommend to even out the playing field? What can we do to attract more officers that look like us to deal with us in our communities?
Oh yeah, that's another good topic that we should have brought up. Because me growing up, I wasn't fond of cops. I never wanted to be a cop. I became a cop when I was 27. And it's because I have police officers in my family, my grandfather, my uncle, but I just feel like we shouldn't make this stigma of if you're a cop, you this, you're a cop, you that. Even now, people see me as a cop, they think I was spoon fed. No, I grew up in the hood. Then they think I was bullied. Never was bullied. What it was with me when I became a cop, I wanted to make a change. Really, you only could do so much from the outside looking in, because people aren't going to respect your opinion because you're speaking from the outside. Uh, so like I can speak on certain situations, what's wrong, what I feel is wrong, what I feel is right, and what I say can be done because I'm living it myself. So I think we need to stop discouraging kids when they want to be cops or they want to take any type of law enforcement career, because we need more than that, more of that. And it's easier when you're policing your own people because you can relate. You go into certain situations, you know what somebody's going through. You know, like uh, I'm not listen. I don't knock nobody for what they do. When I see a drug dealer, I'm not like, oh, he's scum, he this, he that. Listen, I know the struggle. I grew up around drug dealers. I know sometimes there's only certain ways you can feed your family. So I don't judge nobody whether I agree with certain stuff or not. But but I do feel like we shouldn't discourage people from our young kids from being police officers or lawyers and stuff like that. Certain things, because I think we do need that. So we can have people that can relate when they go to jobs. Like there's people that I work with that the one kid, he said he didn't even interact with his first black person until he got to college. But now you're a cop in a predominantly black neighborhood. So stuff like that, I feel like we can't have. And I feel like my department does a good job of getting the police to interact with the community, but some departments aren't so lucky, and that's why we get in these situations where people deal with black people and they're so quick to shoot, or in some situations they are just scared of black people.
Yeah, I'll take before we get to the next one, I want to elaborate on that too because that's the same thing with teachers. So I think that's never happening because that's going to take a massive marketing campaign specifically geared towards black men and women to become police and teachers, which is totally against the system setup. It's not happening. It's going to have to take us to make it a priority to get into the classrooms and to get on the beat or whatever the vocabulary may be. It's going to have to be us, like just the two teachers on this call, KG and myself. We didn't expect to be teachers. Everybody talks about like we need more teachers like y'all got like this gift with the kids. We just stumbled into it because we had the
Mm-hmm.
qualifications. A lot of people don't have the qualifications, and the people like that we need to be teachers and police don't want to be teachers. Like you said, you stumbled into it. I stumbled into teaching. He stumbled
Right.
into teaching. It's not something that we want to be. And while we collectively have this me versus you in terms of black versus white and black versus police, that's the first thing we got to get over. It's not me versus you. Like we talk unhealthy and healthy. Like yo, like let's try to understand each other. Let's come together. Like when I mentioned this to somebody yesterday, they got mad off the rip. Oh, it's nothing we got to do. They just got to stop. Like as soon as they hear white or police, it's like boom, it's such a trigger word, right? So there's so much healing that we have to do to get there. It's never going to be like yo, all y'all black adults come be police and teachers. It's not happening. It's going to have to be decisions that we make. That's what I believe because there's no huge marketing campaign coming for that.
Right.
And my pop said you're a brave officer. This whole meeting is brave. Um,
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
we have to encourage opportunities in law enforcement. Our community needs us.
That's a
So
fact. Definite.
100%. Just
Yeah, I would also say the easiest way to attract any individual or group of individuals to any opportunity is money. Okay. I've realized that reality being an educator in DCPS. I mean, we are by far paid substantially more than other individuals in playing the same roles throughout the country. And people flock here because of that reason. We all know in this society and the way that our society is set up, if you want to incentivize anything is with money. And unfortunately, as me and my wife, you know, uh, kind of take a big picture look at education in the nation, and we see what some teachers are being paid or some educators are being paid. I mean, it is a screaming reality that, hey, look, children in certain environments are not worth as much as others. Because quite honestly, you're not going to get an individual that has a master's degree, a PhD, or just a extremely, extremely solid teacher or educator that's going to take $40,000 if they can go make 95 or 110 somewhere else, right? I mean, your quality, we hear it in a lot of different music and speakers and things of that sort, but you only worth what they pay you. You understand? I mean, the reality is that in our society, right? To you yourself, you might be worth $1 million, but if your paycheck don't say it, you ain't there yet. You got some work to do. You understand? And I can't imagine sending my child to a school where their teacher's only making $35,000 a year. I know that teacher needs another job after school, especially if they have a family. You understand? So how much attention can they give my child or their peers? I mean, this is going to be just one of other responsibilities that they have. If not, I mean, it's just a cry for help on how well they're doing or what maybe their stability is. Because, I mean, especially if you don't happen to live in the middle of America where your rent is $300, I mean, that person's going to have some financial hardship, right? And everybody knows, not everybody, but there is a huge correlation between income and mental health, income and community safety, which impacts people's ability to do their job well and perform well just in any role that they have in life. So I would say that being the response, I mean, we know how to do it in other ways. If you want to incentivize people to leave the suburbs and come to cities now, like they've done in Philly, they've done in DC, they've done in all these different cities, LA, that have been disregarded, or no resources were once pulled out in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Now they're flocking back and pouring all these resources in. They're pouring resources because they want to attract people. It's a very simple approach. So, like Malcolm saying, I don't genuinely believe that is the approach of our society or our government to ensure that people are educated well or that communities are holistically safe, because there is money in poor people. There will always be money in poor people. There will be money in mischief. There's always going to be financial gain, as we see, unfortunately, with this COVID situation. And that's a conversation for another time. But there's opportunity. There is no opportunity where there is no gap. So, just be mindful of that reality.
And then another thing, I think one of the questions was like, how do we attract more people to the police force? And I think a great example of that. Do you guys follow Officer T. Norman on Instagram? Yo, he's amazing. He's a Caucasian officer, but he really gets. I think he's in Little Rock, if I'm not mistaken. But just how he interacts with the community, how he polices, how he just does everything is a great example of I think ways to recruit additional people to not be scared and actually want to go into the police force. So I'll put it in the group chat, and then for anybody who's watching, I think his name is T Norman. Yeah, T Norman 23. He has like 1 million followers. Great person to follow. And he really does great policing in my eyes.
Dope. So Mike, you got another thank you. Thanks, Big Mike, for serving and protecting, praying for your safety. At the end of the day, we all just want to make it home safe. Thanks, Game 7, for bringing this topic to the forefront. And finally, I ain't gonna say yes like you said, but neither group, educators nor police officers, are paid your worth. So I'm gonna take it upon myself to close it out. Even on that last topic, it's up to us, because even those educators and police officers that are paid your worth, like we are in DC, a lot of the ones that may have that Officer Norman gift or the gift that people say that me and KG have, they don't have the qualifications to get the job. They don't have the qualifications. It's like, I know some police officers, like, they check your credit or something. Yo, get your credit together. You might gotta go get an education degree. You might gotta go get some good credits. And like, just from the people that we described that are the good police officers, are the good teachers who kind of intertwined in this conversation, it's something that they just have. Like, I'm sure Mr. Norman, he didn't get that from no training. Like, he just loved helping people. Mike not out there to be no gun-toting, badge-wielding maniac. Yo, I chose to become a cop so I can help people. I ain't sweet for it. Like, if you want to go there, we can go there. I'm gonna use my hands. If not, I'm gonna go there. But it's just something that we gotta have. And I totally agree. And one powerful moment from me from the past 2 weeks, I was watching the podcast $1 Million Worth of Game with Big U and Whack 100, who are notorious gangsters from LA. And they was like, well, before we leave, what do y'all want to tell the youth so they stop getting in trouble? Y'all need to become police. That blew me away. Coming from them, he was like, yo, well, a lot of our issues are with the police, but all we do is talk about them and berate them. But the door is open for us to beat them. And that's when they talk about the credit. Well, yo, get your credit up. We got all these rappers and stuff. Find a way to make some bread. Either go to school or whatever, pay for your school, get your credit up, then become an officer. So the change is up to us. Mike, I appreciate you. Fellas, obviously, I appreciate you. Everybody who watched, this was a very long one, but y'all stuck around with us. We appreciate you. And we'll see you next week when we will talk about why Black kids suck at math. Peace out.
Appreciate it.